Hello. Sorry, I wasn't by my computer when you said hi, but I heard it, so I ran back upstairs. I was so nervous. I couldn't find the link and it was in like spam, so I'm glad I actually thought to check there.
Yeah, thanks for, yeah, I feel like probably a lot of people, like for a lot of people, it went into their spam folder. So I'll have to try to find a way around that.
Yeah, it was there though. I was like, sweet, here we go.
Hi, Mercedes.
Morning, everybody.
Morning. So I'll give people another minute or so to join.
I felt so good after the meditation last night. It was
Oh, good.
amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, we're going to be doing a little bit of that kind of stuff today too. So I guess we can get started here. If you both feel comfortable, if you want to share your name, where you're tuning in from, and kind of what brought you to this workshop.
Do you want me to start? I'll start.
Sure, yeah, go for it.
My name is Mercedes, and I live in California. And I have been going to Mia's meditations on Friday night for a couple months and just experiencing really good results. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing.
I definitely want to go to the meditation circle now. My name is Bryn. I'm from Colorado, and I have my camera off because I had a really terrible migraine last night, so I'm just sitting here in the dark this morning. But yeah, I got to connect with Mia when she was here, and yeah, I'm really, really excited to be here.
Yay.
Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, thank you both for being here. I am definitely really excited for this workshop series, and today will be more relaxed and, laid back. We're just gonna kind of go through a basic overview of what the workshop series is going to be about, do some gentle practices, and kind of get a good start to our Saturdays. So, all right. So we'll start with kind of an arrival and grounding practice today. So go ahead and, find a comfortable space, get settled in. Feel free to grab a blanket or a pillow if you need one, maybe a sip of water real quick before we get started. Just take a moment to settle in. And then when you're ready, close your eyes and tune into your breath. There's no need to force anything here. Just notice the rise and the fall of your stomach and your chest. And start to notice the depth of your breath, or maybe lack of depth. Notice any resistance you might be feeling on that inhale. And remember that whatever you're experiencing with your breath is not right or wrong. It's just information that your body is sending you. So just take another moment to notice what's happening in your body. And now on the inhale, we're going to deepen that breath a little bit, bringing it deeper into our belly. Good. And on the exhale, lengthen the exhale just a little bit to the edge of your comfort zone. Really just to get all of that air out of your lungs before the next breath. Good. We'll stay here for another minute or two, just tuning into the breath, noticing what's happening in your body as you deepen it. When you feel ready, slowly bring your awareness back to this space. You can add some gentle movement to your toes or your fingers, maybe wiggling them a little bit. Give yourself some time to really come back, get centered. Maybe you want to add some neck rolls or some shoulder rolls. Maybe some light stretches. Whatever you feel is right and good for you right now. And as you're coming back, you can go ahead and write in the chat a little bit about your experience if you feel called to, or you can feel free to unmute and share.
It was really interesting for me. I sometimes have resistance to breathing, especially in the morning, because it's a little, I don't know, there are like blocks, but breathing with you, I actually breathe through the blocks. And then I had this really deep, super relaxing moment with my breath that I haven't had often, except for after yoga, say. So that was lovely. Thank you.
Wonderful. Yeah, I'm so glad that you were able to get to that calm space. Yeah, thanks for sharing.
Yeah, that was so, so needed. I really, like Mercedes was just saying, like, I definitely noticed some resistance, and then you brought my attention to it. And then I think right after that, you like reassured us with, like, there's no, like, nothing right or wrong going on. Like, it just is. And that was like a healing balm to hear those words. And yeah, it felt so good just to, yeah, I just haven't been feeling super well. So, like, giving myself that time to just be at home in my brain felt so, so good. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you for sharing. Yeah, I think oftentimes as we're doing this kind of work or even just moving throughout our day, different kinds of sensations can come up. And we can oftentimes label them as right or wrong or good or bad. And just kind of allowing yourself to feel whatever is coming up and giving yourself just some of that like patience and space to work through it can be really, really, really powerful. Really comforting at times as well. So yeah, wonderful. All right, so now that we're kind of a little bit more centered, a little bit more grounded, let's jump into what this workshop is all about. So, so you both know who I am, but for anyone watching the recording, I'm an energy healer and an integrative health coach. I specialize in stress management, somatic healing, and intuitive eating. So today is more of a general overview of what this workshop series is going to be about. And I'm going to give you just a little taste of what's to come as well. So there we go. We did our arrival practice. And I do want to note that this workshop series is not a quick fix. It's not a cure for anything. And it's really going to be encouraging you to figure out what works best for you. So it's not going to be one size fits all advice. There's definitely going to be a lot of space for exploring some of these topics on your own and really discovering what they feel like in your body so that you can make the best decision for yourself and for your health moving forward. And the reason I say, it's not a quick fix is because change like this takes time. And, that's why this workshop series is spread out over 2.5 months or so, is because we are really going to be taking it like 1 week at a time, slowly incorporating some of these changes so that it is more sustainable and long lasting rather than trying to cram all of this change in information into a tiny little space and then having you burn out. So that's the reason that all these workshops are so spread out, is to really give time and space to integrate some of these things that we're going to be practicing and talking about. And yeah, like I mentioned, this workshop series is a path towards sustainable change and really trying to teach you how to navigate the health and wellness industry, because there's so much information out there and it can be really overwhelming at times, especially if you don't come from a health or wellness background. So one of my main goals in this workshop series is to help you tune in with your intuition and your body so that you can navigate this industry a little bit better. And again, make the decisions that are right for you. And we will be going deep into self, deep into our mindsets, deep into our bodies. So yeah. So some of the main goals of this workshop series are about nervous system regulation, really learning to listen to your body and your intuition. Again, learning how to make decisions about your health and wellness that feel right to you, that are based on what your body is telling you, based on what your intuition is telling you. Also to teach you how to shift your energy. So if you find yourself in a state of, and we'll talk about this in a bit, survival mode, or a state of lack or struggle, really teaching you the tools to actually shift out of that energetic state and into more abundance, into more peace, joy, pleasure, all of that good stuff. Again, creating habits that are actually sustainable, that are actually enjoyable to do. We're going to be focusing a lot on the process and taking some attention away from the destination so that you can really focus on the work that you're doing. And at the base of all of this, it's really, expanding your understanding of what wellness is, what health is, kind of creating your own definition of that. Oftentimes when we hear the word health or wellness, we think of nutrition, we think of exercise, kind of some of those more stereotypical things related to health. And yeah, this is really about digging a little bit deeper, because sometimes you could be eating very healthy, you could be exercising, but you're still not seeing the change that you want to see. And oftentimes that's because there's something deeper going on that you need to investigate. So yeah, this workshop series is all about going deeper and getting to the root cause of things and really, investigating some new things possibly. So this workshop series is going to have 8 main workshops. There will be some bonus workshops with guest speakers thrown in there. And we'll see, maybe, this workshop series is really kind of a living thing. So as we go through it, there may be a need for an extra workshop or maybe a healing session that we can all do together. So yeah, this is really all about just kind of going on this journey together. You will have access to all of the recordings, and you will be getting an invite to a Facebook group where we can all share our experiences throughout the workshop series, kind of bring up challenges that you might be feeling, and yeah, just really support each other in this journey. So let's get into the 7-step framework for shifting out of survival mode and into thriving mode. Again, like I said before, this is about kind of diving deeper and maybe investigating some things that you might not typically associate with health and wellness. So keep an open mind here. I promise you it'll be worth it. So let's start off with this concept of survival mode. I think this can mean a lot of different things to different people. So just take a moment and tune in with yourself. What does survival mode mean to you? And feel free to write it in the chat, or since it's just a small group, you can always unmute and share.
For me, survival mode, when I think about it, I get this image of myself with kind of like a type of visor over my eyes where like I'm not actually looking where I'm going, and I'm kind of just in a state of panic and just moving. That's what I got.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing.
The first word that came to mind for me was just scarcity, and definitely like this feeling of franticness that I need to like be doing more, just more. Like there's just like this feeling of like I can't keep up enough. I need to keep going, and it's just still not enough. And yeah, the visor was a really good way to put that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think what survival mode for a lot of people it means is kind of feeling out of alignment, right? So what I was hearing from both of you was kind of this like overwhelm, this not feeling quite right, not feeling quite comfortable in what we're doing. And yeah, a lot of times that comes from being out of alignment with our authentic selves, with what we really need, with our boundaries. And so as we go through some of this, we're going to be exploring a little bit about, what does it mean to come back into alignment? What does it mean to listen to our authentic self and, take action from that point instead of, for example, scarcity or lack, or feeling like we need to be something else or doing something else to fit into society. So yeah, thank you both for sharing. So now let's take a moment and think, what does thriving mode mean to you? You can close your eyes here if you feel called to kind of help you get a clear picture of what thriving mode means to you. Maybe you take a moment to tune into how thriving mode feels in your body. Does it feel more expansive? Does it feel more peaceful, more relaxed? And maybe that's not how it feels for you. Maybe it feels more energetic. Maybe more contractive.
Yeah, thriving mode is definitely a state of abundance where I'm engaging with life around me, and receiving. There's definitely a quality of receiving all that comes my way.
Yeah, I love that word receiving, because we'll definitely be talking a little bit about that in a bit, about shifting into that state of receiving instead of grasping and chasing certain things. So yeah, thank you for sharing. All right. So the 7-step framework, here it is. And it might seem very obvious, especially if you've been in the personal development space for a while. You might look at this and think like mindset, habits, gratitude. Like I've heard all this before. But the way that we're going to be approaching these topics in this series is really through more of an experiential lens. So we're going to be doing a lot of practices, learning a lot of tools, and really grounding some of these concepts. So we're not just going to be talking about, the theories and the concepts and the ideas behind them, but also figuring out how to really integrate them within our lives, because I think that's really the key to transformation, and the key to change is learning how to put these things into action in a way that is aligned and in a way that is sustainable as well. So the first one, working with your nervous system. This is going to be the cornerstone of all the work that we do in this workshop series, especially because, if your nervous system is not regulated, if you're in a state of stress, anxiety, if you're stuck in the cycle of chronic stress, then you could do all the mindset work that you wanted to, but you wouldn't be able to have that body feeling of the mindset work. So that's what we're really going to be focusing on in the next few workshops is, figuring out how we can take all the mindset stuff and then really feel it in our bodies so that we can feel that abundance that we're shifting into, like feel that gratitude, the joy, and all of that. So when you're regulating your nervous system, you want to focus on activities that activate the parasympathetic nervous system. And we'll go into all of this stuff in next Saturday's workshop. It's going to be all about learning more about the nervous system, how we can work with it, and different tools that we can use to help manage stress and regulate ourselves. So diet and movement are also important in nervous system regulation. And all of this, is really to help prevent some of these health effects that can come from being stuck in the stress response. So chronic stress can affect digestion, it can affect blood pressure, it can cause chronic pain, especially when you're not giving yourself the space or you don't have the right tools to work through the stress. You can kind of like start to get those feelings stuck in your body. So if you think about a time where you were really stressed or anxious or overwhelmed, you might notice that your body starts to contract. It starts to get tense. And when we don't allow that tension to be resolved, that tension gets stuck in our bodies and can sometimes lead to disease. It can lead to chronic pain, chronic tension. And it can also affect our energy levels. So if you're dealing with any kind of fatigue, chronic fatigue, stress is a huge factor in that as well, and not knowing how to manage your energy well. So step 2, investigate your belief system and your mindset. So I'm sure you've heard the saying that your thoughts create your reality, or your thoughts affect your reality. Obviously there is a material reality to contend with. Like oftentimes things happen outside of our power, but the power of perception is what we are going to be focusing on mostly. It's how we are perceiving the world around us, because when we shift the way that we're perceiving the world around us, we also shift what's happening within our body. So this will be big when we talk about stress management. For example, when you shift the way you perceive certain triggers or certain stimuli, that's going to change your body's response to those stimuli as well. We'll talk about limiting beliefs and conditioning. This is any kind of belief or any kind of perception that's really keeping you from tuning into your authentic self. A lot of times as we go through the world, we are subject to conditioning that teaches us that it's not safe for us to be expressing our most authentic self. So that's definitely something that we'll be talking about as well. And as we go through this, you'll find that all of these topics are so interconnected. So mindset is so connected with nervous system work. Like I said before, in order for us to be able to integrate our mindset work, we have to be able to regulate our nervous system. And some of the topics that we'll talk about in a bit, you'll also see the connections there. So in one of our upcoming workshops, we'll talk about how we can reframe some of these limiting beliefs, reframe some of the perceptions that we have about the world around us to help us move through the world in a better way. And yeah, when it comes to health and wellness, for example, if you have a belief that you cannot, like it's not possible for you to achieve a certain level of wellness, then you won't ever be able to. So that's an example of a limiting belief. And so we'll be working on kind of, what does working through limiting beliefs actually look like, and how can we integrate it more into, our everyday lives. So step 3, establish sustainable habits. So how many of you have had this vision for, a place that you want to be, or a mindset that you want to have, or a routine that you want to have? And then you try to do all of the things and you get burnt out really quickly. Right, yeah. I see Mercedes raising her hand. Yes. And there is, scientific evidence behind why this doesn't work, but basically, let's just start off with, we're going to start small. We're going to take baby steps. We're going to focus on the process and actually enjoying the process instead of getting caught up in the final destination that we're trying to reach. Because, and maybe if you've been in the healing space and the spiritual space, you'll know that there's something called the healing trap, where we are constantly trying to be better and constantly trying to heal this and that, and constantly trying to get to some place down the road. And oftentimes we forget about all the progress that we have made. We forget that where we are right now is actually really so powerful. So we'll be focusing on kind of appreciating where we're at right now, appreciating everything our mind and our body are doing for us right now, instead of getting super caught up in getting somewhere. Self-compassion is another big one. Sometimes when we do try to do all the things and get off track, we experience guilt or shame, or we, create blocks to getting back on track. So throughout this process, we'll really be focusing on practicing self-compassion. Like if you miss a day, or if you miss a week of whatever practice you're trying to create, like that's okay, because life happens. And being able to practice self-compassion and come back to your practice, come back to the work in a way that's loving and forgiving, is going to really be the key, I think, to creating the change that we want to create. And accountability. I mean, that's why we work with other people, right? Is to create that accountability, because while we can do things ourselves, and I think there's so much power in self-healing, it is so empowering to have other people on the journey with you. So that's why we're doing the Facebook group. That's why we're doing these sessions, is to know that you have someone there beside you, someone who has your back. And, throughout this workshop series, if anything ever comes up for you, I hope you'll send me a message, send me an email, and, we'll work through it together, because that's what this series is all about. It's about lifting each other up. It's about, creating the change within ourselves that we want to see in the world. So step 4, learning the language of the body. This is going to be so huge, I think, as we're going through this process. Something that I mentioned before is that all of the sensations, all of the things that are coming up for you when you tune into your body, it's not right or wrong or good or bad. It's just information that your body is sending you. So we're going to learn how to really tune into that, how to gain a broader awareness of what these cues and sensations and signals might mean, and how we can use those cues and signals to, make decisions for, our lifestyles, for our diets, for the kind of exercise we might want to do, because our body is constantly speaking to us. And as we move through the world, oftentimes we get disconnected from it. We get more in our headspace. And we really lose that connection with what's keeping us grounded and with what's keeping us healthy. So we'll also be learning how to work through some of the tension that comes up as we get disconnected, because with dissociation, kind of jumping out of the body, that kind of stuff. When we do that, we're not bringing attention to what's happening inside of us. And that's when some of that tension can really become more dense in our bodies. So we'll be working with this on a somatic level, on an energetic level. But in a way that is accessible. I'll be teaching you tools that you can do on your own to work through some of these kind of things. Because that's really important to me as well, is that you guys have the tools to be able to do this work. And it's not just me like guiding you through this. So yeah. Step 5, move your body. So there was a study done at Duke University that showed that certain types of exercise are as effective in treating depression and anxiety as antidepressants, which is huge. And I think, if you're feeling some resistance to that right now, maybe ask yourself why. We live in a world where medication is prioritized over holistic healing. And this in no way is bashing medication, because I think Western medicine is very, very important in healing, in health, in wellness, all that stuff. But in this workshop series, this is all about holistic health, right? So we're going to be exploring different ways of managing some of these kind of things. So some questions you might want to ask yourself are, what do I actually enjoy doing? And how can I add movement to it? So, if you love being in nature, how can you add movement to that? Maybe you want to go for a long walk in nature. Maybe you want to go for a run. Maybe you want to go for, a hike where you can climb some boulders or something like that. And that's another thing. This series is really about kind of bringing out that playfulness inside of yourself. And we'll definitely be tying that in with movement. And we'll also be doing some somatic healing sessions, really working with body awareness, working through difficult emotions tied in with that. So that's what the movement workshop that we'll be doing later in the series will really be about, is kind of bringing some of that awareness back to the body and exploring how we can move our body in different ways that feel good to us. Something that I recently heard is that, when we're exploring movement, oftentimes it doesn't feel super great because we're trying to move in the ways that we were taught to move by society. So this is really going to be about deconstructing some of that and coming back to your own intuition and how you want to move. So, yeah. And then step 6, adding more joy and pleasure to our lives. I think a lot of times when we hear the word pleasure, we automatically think of, sexuality and sensuality and those kind of things. And while, there may be an element of that in, some of this work, we're really going to be focusing on more tuning into how we can receive things. So when we enter a state of receiving, we're able to kind of sit back, right? Relax. We're not going to be grasping for joy and pleasure. We're going to be discovering ways of how we can receive more pleasure in our day-to-day life. There's something called the 5% pleasure rule. And as we go through our lives, there are going to be things that we need to do that we don't necessarily enjoy or want to do. And what Anne Nguyen says is it's all about how you're relating to it. So if you can find just 5% of pleasure in that task that you really don't want to do, it's going to change how you relate to it. And, I think we can apply this to just like everything in our lives. If we change how we're perceiving it, if we change how we're relating to it, we're going to feel a lot more fulfilled. There's also something called pleasure activism that we'll briefly touch on. It's mostly about exploring non-capitalistic kind of ways of connecting with our joy and connecting with our pleasure. Because oftentimes, if you think of the self-care and self-love industry, you think of, physical material products. So we're going to be exploring ways of getting in touch with our joy, getting in touch with our pleasure that we just need our bodies for. Like, we don't need anything else because we have everything we need already within us, right? And I think this is a much more accessible way of approaching this work. And, access is really important to me. So that will definitely be a huge theme in some of the things that we do. And, we'll also be tapping into that inner joy that we had as a child, and finding ways to incorporate that more into our daily lives. Like I mentioned with the movement, and we'll, be incorporating it into a lot more things than just movement, but how can we allow space for that kind of joy, that inner child in us to come out? So we'll be doing some work around that as well. Gratitude and body feeling. So I know gratitude is being talked about a lot right now. And I think a lot of people feel some resistance to this because, gratitude journaling is something that a lot of people are familiar with, but if you approach it as just another task to do, it isn't going to work, right? Like if you sit down with your gratitude journal and you're like, okay, I just need to write out these 5 things and then we're good, and then we're good. And that's gonna, that doesn't work. So we really are going to be learning how to tap into feeling gratitude in our bodies. And gratitude is tied with greater levels of well-being, higher levels of positive emotions, all that good stuff. But if we're just doing it in our heads, if we're just kind of going through the list, it's just not going to have the effect that we want. So, well, let's take a moment actually right now and go ahead and bring one thing to mind, just one thing that you're grateful for today. And you might be looking at it from a distance, kind of as an observer, but really tap into what you feel when you experience that thing. How does it smell, taste, feel, look? And how is that gratitude and that abundance showing up in your body? So this is what we're calling the felt sense of gratitude. And this felt sense is much more expansive, much more transformative, much more effective than approaching gratitude from more of a logical space. Yeah, and if you feel called to share, you can, unmute, drop it in the chat, maybe how those sensations felt in your body, maybe how you feel before versus after tuning into that thing that you are grateful for.
For me, I'm really grateful of these giant trees that exist in California. And when I tune into the feeling of gratitude, it's actually like this white sense of aliveness, this energy of just being part of life. It's really gorgeous. Thank you, Mia.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing. So that is the 7-step framework that we'll be working through. Again, we will be diving a lot deeper into these topics in each workshop that is to come, but just for the sake of time today, it's just kind of a basic overview. I think as we go through this series, we'll start to notice little shifts that happen. And again, even if you feel like some of these things are super obvious, or you feel like, oh, this is something that I still do in my day-to-day life, I still would encourage you to, show up to these workshops, because the more that we work with this, the deeper we develop our relationship to these certain ideas and concepts. So yeah. So now that we're kind of through all of that, does anyone have any questions, any maybe even observations or anything that you want to mention?
I really liked your bit. I mean, I liked all of it, but I liked the bit about sustainable habits.
Mm.
It's such a tender little spot. And it's taken me until my 40s to kind of learn how to surrender into supportive habits instead of pushing so much. And I'm excited to explore how you address that.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, that yeah, that's huge, right? Like there are so many standards and pictures of what like the perfect routine or the perfect type of transformation looks like and how to do that. And I think creating space for us to just be human and like move through that in a way that feels right is so important. So that's kind of going to be the approach to that, is just allowing ourselves to ride with the waves and, the good, the bad, everything, and just kind of, be compassionate with ourselves, be patient with ourselves as we go through that.
Love that. Is it kind of like a less is more approach?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. Yeah, definitely focusing on simplifying a little bit, and yeah, again, starting small. So
Yeah. Thanks.
thank you for sharing.
I'm really excited for that bit too. I feel like I try to force myself to like change overnight sometimes. Obviously that doesn't work. And I'm very excited. I've told you this for the nervous system regulation one. I do a ton of mindset work and you can like feel so different, but as soon as you stand up and start moving as you normally have, like it can interrupt all the work you just did. So I'm really excited to learn more about the power of the body because they're really not separate, but I'm just excited to see what magic awaits there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you for sharing. And I think that's what, like you said, the magic. That's where the magic is created, is when the mind and the body come together and work in harmony with one another. Because we can do all the nervous system work that we want, but without the mindset work, there's still going to be something missing a little bit, and vice versa as well. So really bringing those two together is, I think, going to be really powerful. Wonderful. So I think we're just going to finish off with a brief closing practice, just to kind of move some of the information that we saw with today through our bodies and get ready for the rest of our day. So Bryn, I know that you're feeling a little under the weather, so feel free to adapt this to, however feels right. But if you feel, called to, go ahead and stand up. We're going to do a little bit of shaking. Go ahead and stand up. And take a moment to notice how all of the information we talked about today feels inside of your body. Do you feel some resistance to it, or does it feel empowering? So just take a moment, tune into any sensations you might be feeling here. Notice any way that your body wants to move right now. Maybe that includes some rocking back and forth. And then we'll just start shaking a little bit. Start with your feet, with your legs. Shake it all out. Move up to your arms, to your hands and your hips, your head, your neck. Feel free to jump up and down a little bit if that feels right to you. You can do this for as long as you need. When you feel ready, you can start to wind down a little bit. Take a few deep breaths. Maybe exhaling out with a deep sigh. We'll just come back. Wonderful. So this shaking technique is something you can use anytime you're starting to feel like your energy is a little stagnant, or if you feel like you need to release some energy that's been building up, or work through something. It's really, really helpful to get your body involved whenever you're trying to do some kind of work. So yeah, so that's all we have for today. Thank you so much for joining me today, and make sure you put in your calendar next week's workshop. It's again going to be all about raising your vibration through regulating your nervous system. We're gonna do a bit of a deep dive into the stress cycle, the stress response, and exploring some tools for how to deal with all of that. So hope you both have a wonderful Saturday, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you, Mia.
Thank you.
Mia.
Yeah.
I hope you don't mind. I was still in my pajama bottoms. I don't want to stand up and shake. Everyone's gonna see my jammy bottoms.
Oh, that's all good. That's all good.
Okay.